Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome into Green Dot Daily live from the Tommy John studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and here's what we've got coming up on the show. Chris Raybon, fresh off his undefeated Week 3, looks to stay on fire and dishes out his best bet of the weekend. I have a feeling he'll also heavily judge me for my thoughts on Thursday night football. More on that in just a sec. It's not quite the craps table, but UNLV Rebels starting quarterback Matthew Sluka has stepped away from the program and decided to redshirt the rest of the season over a six-figure NIL dispute. I guess what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay there. Brett McMurphy and Colin Wilson hop on to break that down and dish out some best bets for the CFB week as well. And Mike Calabrese hops on to run through his NCAA simulation of the highly anticipated Georgia-Alabama bout. Can the Tide hold serve at home in Kalen DeBoer's first marquee game in Tuscaloosa? And yes, it's a football-heavy show, everyone, and we're starting over in the NFL. Here are some of the key storylines ahead of Week 4. Fresh off a primetime surprise on Monday night, the Bengals fell to 0-3, their worst start in 5 years. The same cannot be said for Josh Allen and the Bills, who took care of business just hours earlier, as Allen has slid into the new MVP favorite entering Sunday night football against the Baltimore Ravens. And of course, the Dallas Cowboys have dealt with disaster early on. They head to New York on Thursday night football, and one can only wonder if this is a must-win for a team that has started out 1-2 despite paying Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb the big bucks. As we welcome in Chris Raybon to talk more about the NFL slate as a whole. Chris, before we get into it, first off, congratulations on the undefeated Week 3. Everyone is pushing it, just like Kerner's undefeated 16-0 run. Are you a superstitious guy? Are you like, now that everyone's promoting it, I'm going downhill? Or does this not even, worry you at all?
No, it doesn't really change anything, because the same way we make our bets, we're just going by the process. Whether things get promoted or not, or people know about it or not, it doesn't change anything with the outcomes on the field. So I'm chilling.
That's fair. I always like to say that if they publicize my stuff, I'm a little bit worried that it's all going to come downhill the next week. But now that I have you here, and you're red hot, and you feel that way, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about my thoughts ahead of the week before we get your best bet, because I want to take advantage of this streak that you're on. First one's Thursday night football. I talked about it kind of at the top of the show. CeeDee Lamb's over-under, 78.5 at FanDuel. Listen, I understand it's like Joe Public, Mr. Square, to want to go to his over, but he was very upset last week on the sidelines against Baltimore. He's been under this in 2 of 3, but still getting a lot of usage. I just feel like this is a feed CeeDee Lamb game. The Cowboys at 1-2 need a win. How do you win? You feed your best player. They don't have a dominant run game, so CeeDee Lamb is going to be involved early and often. What are your thoughts on CeeDee Lamb as a whole in this matchup? And am I crazy for wanting to go, the most square way and bet his over?
No, I think this is a really good matchup for him. The Giants' defense is not good. I mean, they played a rookie quarterback in his second start in the second game, and then they played Deshaun Watson, which might be even worse than that, in their third game. They still struggled against Amari Cooper. They struggled against Justin Jefferson. So, I think that this is a tough matchup for them. The only thing that sometimes messes up a play like this is, the Cowboys, it could be a bounce back spot for them. The usage, like, they might not need to throw a ton against this Giant team, which is just not very good. So that's the only thing. But I do think that this is the right matchup for CD. And short week, you usually feed your best players. It's hard to kind of create a really kind of expansive game plan. I'm sure they put a lot more effort into that Ravens game. So, yeah, I would lean over on this one as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's good to hear. Good to hear. Because I know that it's like very public and everyone's going to be on this over, but it just feels like one of those games, and you've seen CeeDee Lamb's previous history against the Giants. They've absolutely torn him, or he's torn them apart. All right, the other one I want to talk about is, do I catch the falling knife with the Jaguars? Well, I actually put it in the app. So I am catching the falling knife on Jaguars +7 against Houston. 3.5 on the look-ahead line, up to 6.5, 7 at most spots. That feels like an overreaction. We talked about New Orleans and Philly. What ended up happening? The Eagles won outright. It just feels like Houston hasn't looked all that spectacular. I understand Trevor Lawrence did not look good. But teams that are +4 or higher after losing by 35+ points the week before, 73% against the spread. Houston hasn't looked that great to me. Jacksonville obviously has not looked even close to decent, but I think that this is a spot where you go against the public and everyone's going to be wanting to bet Houston and tease Houston and everything.
Yeah, it's Jags or nothing. Like, I don't think you want to lay the points with Houston just based on how the Texans have played so far, as you mentioned. But I do think this is a little different situation from, let's say, the Eagles and Saints, because the Eagles and Saints, it was just, okay, you had one team that was just on this crazy run, but they were both solid teams. Whereas this Jags team, now we're 3 games into this season, we're in week 4, and it's just how much, like, this could be one of the worst teams in football. So, how much further down do they have to go? They're on a short week, and they're talking about making all these changes on a short week. So this one could also still unravel for the Jaguars. It might not be about the Texans at all. It might just be about the Jaguars. So I do think it's the Jags or nothing. Like, I don't think you want to weigh the Texans, but I got to do a deeper dive. I got to see what they're talking about during the week as far as what changes they're going to make. I mean, I've heard calls to bench Trevor Lawrence. If Mac Jones is in the game against Houston, I want no parts of this. So, there's still a lot of moving pieces, but it's definitely Jags or nothing.
Yeah, the second that Mac Jones takes over for Trevor Lawrence is the second that I cash out of my bet and eat the losses and do whatever I can to get out of it, because that is something I want absolutely no part of. I'm just worried about Minnesota. I mean, Houston, they got blown out by Minnesota, looked pretty bad in the second half against Chicago. They really haven't shown me anything to make me a believer in this team thus far. I understand the Jags haven't either, but it just feels like, the spot that no one wants to touch. It's the garbage dive, the prototypical spot that you would buy back buy for the Jags. All right. So the last one we're going to get to here, I'm done asking my red hot friend Chris Raybon for advice. I'm just going to ask you for your best bet for this week. Obviously, you are going to be live later today with the Sunday Six Pack. You and Stuckey giving out your favorite 3 picks, his favorite 3 picks at 6 p.m. Eastern on our Action Network YouTube channel. And I heard you saved the first one for us here, so please tell me where we're going.
Yeah, speaking of teams that are red hot, how about those Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm going to fade them and roll with the Indianapolis Colts plus 1.5 at home. Listen, these two teams, I don't think there's that big a spread between them. And now you're making the Colts an underdog at home. I know Anthony Richardson's missed some throws. He threw a pick or 2 in the end zone this season already. But the Colts still are they're the second unluckiest team in our luck rankings this year. And the Steelers already up to number 11 and probably climbing. That's generally how it is with the Steelers. They get a lot of luck, but 3-0, they haven't scored more than 20 points in any game. They're banged up. Highsmith is going to be out. Both of their top 2 running backs are banged up. They had Cordero Patterson playing wide receiver and running back last week. So this could be a little bit of a mess. I just think this is an overreaction to one of the few unbeaten teams in the NFL that, there's a lot of parity these days. But if you go back, Pittsburgh's been in these spots before, but 10-23 against the spread are the Pittsburgh Steelers, just 30% as a road favorite against a team with a losing record under Mike Tomlin. This is one of those flat spots for the Steelers. I just don't think that this is a team that's going to get to 4-0. You can't see the headlines a week later. Steelers improved to 4-0 behind Justin Fields is winning as a favorite on the road. Nah, stop it. Let's go Colts plus 1.5.
Yeah, it feels like this is the prototypical spot where you fade the Steelers, right? You always want to grab them as an underdog. You always got the rah-rah Mike Tomlin spot. Now you have them as a favorite with Justin Fields under center. It definitely feels like the Colts are the way to go. Maybe a buy spot. Jonathan Taylor should, kind of have his way in the trenches in this one. But, all right, Chris, appreciate you hopping on, breaking this down, telling me I'm not that crazy for CeeDee Lamb, because I'm about to put that one in the app as well, despite it being a high over. And just a reminder for Chris, he'll be on the Week 4 Sunday Six Pack tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's coming to you live from our YouTube channel and the Action Network app. Chris, best of luck tonight, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.
Another week, another glimpse at perfection here at Action Network. After Sean Kerner's 16-0 run, our very own Chris Raybon picked up the baton with that 7-0 record, betting the NFL in Week 3, as we just discussed, to give everyone a piece of the action. We're offering new Action Pro subscribers $20 off the price of an annual subscription. All you have to do is go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use the promo code PERFECT, and you'll get access to instant notifications anytime Chris Raybon makes a pick. You'll also get access to our projections for NFL spreads, totals, and props for every game every single week. Once again, that's actionnetwork.com/pro with the promo code PERFECT. Over to the land of college football, and huge news out of the Mountain West dropped this morning. Due to alleged NIL disputes, UNLV starting quarterback Matthew Sluka announced that he is redshirting the rest of the season and stepping away from the Rebels with intent to transfer. Sluka took to X to announce the news, saying that his NIL commitments were not fulfilled out of the UNLV camp. His NIL rep, Marcus Cromartie, said that Sluka was verbally promised $100,000 from an assistant coach, which was never paid. The Rebels have disputed this announcement, saying that Sluka asked for more money after starting the season 3-0 with wins over both Houston and Kansas. This seemingly messy situation is only beginning to unravel now as we welcome in college football insider Brett McMurphy and college football analyst and senior writer Colin Wilson. Brett, I'll kick it to you first. I've been trying to diversify my sources a little bit more, looking at X, looking at Reddit, maybe even the UNLV fan pages that are existing to try and find more. But of course, you're the analyst, the insider here. Please tell me what you're hearing around this situation.
Yeah, I would highly recommend going to message boards. Those are very credible sources there. But I kid. Look, this isn't the first kid that's gone to UNLV went to Vegas and came home with less money than he had. The issue is, and you laid it out perfectly, Charlie. You're hearing, both sides of this. Ultimately, I think both sides made a bad decision here in that both sides are in the wrong. There should have been something in writing. There wasn't. There was something verbally told to Sluka by a representative of UNLV or a UNLV assistant coach. And, now it's kind of like, well, sorry, you're out of luck. Obviously, people feel very strongly about this either way. The kid should honor his commitment, remain at the school. And then you have the other side of, well, if he's not getting what he was supposed to get, then yeah, would you show up to work if you didn't receive what you were supposed to get? So look, this isn't the first time this has happened. We had this happen at Florida. The star quarterback transferred out because he said he was promised money from the collective. He left, went to Arizona State. This certainly will not be the last time this has happened. I mean, I think if the kid was really trying to stick it to UNLV, he would have waited until like Friday night to do this. The fact that he did it early in the week, again, we're still getting all the facts. I tend to believe that he was made a promise that has not been delivered by UNLV. Unfortunately, that's not in writing. So good luck proving that.
Yeah, right. The NIL it's only going to more of these situations are only going to continue thanks to the NIL. So, but we'll learn more about the situation in general. Colin, my thought was immediately when I saw the news was like, oh, let me go fade UNLV as soon as this quarterback news change happens. A couple hours ago, you ended up putting in UNLV in the app, buying the complete line movement that has changed. Obviously, it was around -5. Now they're underdogs with this quarterback change since Sluka's not suiting up. Can you tell me why you like UNLV here and what made you go this way?
Well, there's two things going on. There's two things that could remedy this whole thing, and the line movement should not have been about 5 points in the market for this. First off, Sluka could come back and play. Do you know how little $100,000 is in Vegas? I can't tell you how many times I've sat next to a guy at the Venetian or the Cosmo high rolling blackjack room, and they're playing $100,000 a hand. I'm sure they can find $100,000 before Saturday, and this could relieve itself. But if they go to their backup quarterback, it's Haj Malik Daniels, somebody that was neck and neck with Sluka during fall camp, somebody that Action Network, the whole college football team has been on for years. This is a guy in his 6th season. He spent a whole bunch of time at Campbell. He's passed for over 6,300 yards. He's a better runner on the ground by far than Sluka. And Sluka had a 43% completion rate. Like, what are we, a 5-point line move for a quarterback that, we're going to swap in someone that runs the RPO better, someone that has an arm that can go just as good as Sluka. So I don't understand the line movement whatsoever. It was a complete overreaction. Once it got to be Fresno as a favorite in Las Vegas, it was time to hit UNLV. A lot of those have evaporated. We're back to -1 on UNLV, but it was just way too far of a line move to go from Sluka to Haj Malik Williams.
Yeah, it really felt like an overreaction.
Colin.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Colin, you told me you would never tell anybody I was playing $100,000 in blackjack, so I'm pretty upset about that.
Listen.
Look, you make a lot of great points. My concern is, what if there are other UNLV players in the same situation and they bail out? But Yeah, and the other thing I would have a concern with is he hasn't been taking first team reps, all the first 3 weeks of the season, and now he's thrust in the starting roles 3 days before kickoff. But this obviously will get a lot of attention on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. And listen, I mean, Sluka has the leverage a bit. They have wins against Houston and Kansas, so maybe even now they come with the 100,000 and we're like, see, we have this. He might be hearing more offers and better numbers from other colleges across the country, because that's the beauty of the NIL, is that you can get outbid ultimately. But again, Colin buying the dip on UNLV. It's come back around -1 right now. But Colin, the other story that's kind of surfacing around college football is the hurricane that is hitting, throughout. Obviously in baseball, it's affecting the Mets and the Braves series. In college football in general, it's about to hit throughout the entire week. So I just, take me through as a handicapper how you're approaching this hurricane and what bettors should know ahead of, all of this unfolding.
Well, even before anything kicked on week 4, I'd say probably last Friday, we knew that there was going to be a hurricane that was going to hit the Gulf. We knew that it was going to land somewhere between Tampa and New Orleans. So we were already on deck, ready to hit some unders. We thought Tuscaloosa could have been the target point. We thought a number of places. I mean, this thing had a reach. There was a projection that the National Weather Service put out that this thing could get all the way up to Michigan by the time Saturday rolled around. So what you have to do when you have a week like this, you have to check every 6 hours when the National Weather Service, the hurricane alerts come out. They project the path. The latest one that we have right now says that this sits and spins right on top of Paducah, Kentucky. So the 2 games that's going to put into question is going to be Middle Tennessee at Memphis, Maryland at Indiana. But there is just a slew of games. They could update this again in 6 hours. We could be up in the South Bend region for Louisville and Notre Dame, Akron and Ohio, Nebraska and Purdue. And what I've said before on our podcast, I think on our recap podcast on Saturday with Stuckey, I said, don't get stuck in the spin cycle with these. These are going to drop dramatically, then they're going to come up, and it's all going to be based upon wind. Know your key numbers. We have an article out there on Action Network for everybody to read. What are the key numbers and totals? 55, 51, 41, 59, 58, 45. I mean, go find that article. If you're wanting to know where a key and where resistance is going to be, that's it. So my best advice now, here in the middle of the week, check every 6 hours, see if it changes path, react in the market on around a key number if you think that you can get there before everybody else does.
Right, and Alabama A&M and FAMU has already been postponed. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of college football as the hurricane kind of unfolds. Colin, it was funny because I'm sitting at my desk and I'm just getting notification, and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm Mr. Popular. No, it's Colin Wilson unfolding just a slew of unders in wake of this, and obviously that's why you follow Colin in the app, as a lot of these numbers taking off. I'm curious, just the single game that's most impacted by this weather. You hinted at a couple, and I know you have a bet tying to one of the two.
Yeah, Memphis already has a very, very large advantage in their game against Middle Tennessee, a Middle Tennessee team that's only won 1 game this year. It was against Tennessee Tech, and they trailed with 1 minute left. They haven't even covered a game this year. They're one of the worst in the nation in havoc allowed. Their offense can't stop making mistakes. Enter in a very hot, upset Memphis team that was just embarrassed by Navy. They don't have to face a triple option this weekend. They are a top 20 defensive havoc team. If you're going to add precip and you're going to add wind, Middle Tennessee may cough up a couple of scoop and scores. I don't know what. I mean, Middle Tennessee is already a disaster on offense. You're going to throw these elements on top of them. I think that number hasn't gone up enough. Opened at 24. I think we're 26. It's going to 27. I'd try to get it 27 or better. 27 is probably where I'd stop in this game.
So, yeah, obviously keep an eye on that number. It's going to be coming up more and more as in favor of Memphis. Brett, I need a best bet from the weekend. You're targeting the top 25 matchup between OK State and Kansas State. And I guess they say, fans kind of know their teams are the most, and you're fading your alma mater, OK State, in this matchup here.
I am, and thanks for mentioning that I hit last week with Tennessee over Oklahoma. I appreciate that, Charlie. Yeah, I'm staying in the Sooner State. Shake your head, Colin. Look, Kansas State lost to BYU, but anybody that saw the score, like Colin, looked inside the box score, knows that Kansas State outgained BYU by 120, 130 yards. They gave up a defensive touchdown. They gave up a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. By the way, that's 5 yards shorter than my career long. I'll tell you that some other day, sports fans. Oklahoma State ranks in the bottom 30 in yards rushing allowed. They have the 9th worst defense overall, and that was facing Utah's backup. They couldn't even beat Utah without Cam Rising. Now they get Kansas State's #2 rushing offense in the Big 12. Avery Johnson will do just fine against the Cowboys. This series has been dominated by the home team. Oklahoma State won last year in Stillwater. 2 years ago in Manhattan, Kansas State won 48-0. Gundy is incredible as an underdog, the best there is on the planet. However, until Oklahoma State can figure out their issues on the offensive line at quarterback, I know this is a 30-minute show, so I won't run down the whole list. Give me Kansas State -4 in the Little Apple.
Yeah, back in my day, I was a good backup quarterback. I just gave the handoffs. I had a mean handoff. But Colin, you, this is perfect here because you actually are on OK State. I saw you put it in the app. I ended up hopping aboard with you. Does this make you more confident or less confident now that Brett's on the other side?
There's going to be a full preview put out on Action Network, I believe, tomorrow night. This is the game where, first off, there's a lot of issues. Alan Bowman never saw cover one, ever. And then he saw it against Utah last week, and he could not deal with a high safety. That is not what Kansas State runs. Plus, when you look at it, teams have been loading the box against Ollie Gordon and keeping him down. It's not because Ollie Gordon's been bad. It's because teams are putting 8 or 9 in the box to stop Ollie and allowing Alan Bowman to go one-on-one. Well, Kansas State runs a 3-man front, a very light box. And if they want to get aggressive and they want to blitz, Alan Bowman's going to get one-on-one coverage with Stribling and Presley. So I just see a lot of advantages for this Oklahoma State team to bust out here against a Kansas State defense that has given up a ton of yards to everybody through the air.
You didn't tell me if it makes you more or less confident that Brett's on the other side.
I hate it when I lose to Brett because I hear about it.
Example
try
last
to him
week
by one stroke in golf. You'll hear about it for years.
Example last week.
Charlie, it makes me more confident. More confident.
You were on Tennessee last week, and Colin stuck. We're on Oklahoma.
Was not.
So
exactly.
I'm going to give you your flowers. Brett 1, Colin 0 right now. But next week we can revisit this again. Colin Wilson, Brett McMurphy. Appreciate you guys hopping on. And a reminder that you guys will be on BBOC Saturday mornings, 10:30 Eastern, breaking down the rest of the college football slate. Thanks, guys. Sticking to the land of CFB, a pair of top 5 teams square off in Tuscaloosa as #2 Georgia takes on #4 Alabama on Saturday. Here's a look at these teams to date. Alabama's offense has been absolutely terrific with Jalen Milroe under center, averaging nearly 50 points per game. Both teams, though, have rode a dominant defensive play en route to a sparkling 3-0 record, with Georgia in particular allowing just 6 points per game. That included a bout with Clemson, as we now welcome in Mike Calabrese to talk more about the top 25 matchup, or top 5, I should say, matchup on hand. Mike, every week we get your opinion on the game, but first we need to know the NCAA simulation. What did the video game spit out with this top 5 matchup?
College football 25 seems to like Alabama in this spot. The Crimson Tide winning 25-20, and it started with a really great first half for not only the Alabama defense, but also Jalen Milroe. They jumped out to a 15-0 lead at the break. The first half featured 2 takeaways by the Crimson Tide, a safety drilling Carson Beck in his own end zone, and a blocked field goal, so everything went right for Alabama. Both quarterbacks were battered in this one, 9 sacks in total, but Carson Beck stood and delivered in the second half, nearly spurring a second half rally. Ultimately, too many big plays from Milroe with his legs, and an incredible throw out of his own end zone in the fourth quarter, finding his tight end on a 3rd and long. That was the backbreaker. They end up going down, getting a field goal to seal the game. So Alabama wins it by 5 at home at Bryant-Denny, 25-20.
Kellen DeBoer getting his first opportunity in Tuscaloosa to really make a statement for the Tide. How do you feel in general for this game? If you have to handicap this one, what would you end up doing?
So over the years, I've really enjoyed in marquee matchups playing double results. So essentially, you're picking a team to lead at halftime and then to win the game outright. And in this one, if you take Alabama to lead at halftime, but Georgia to win the game, it pays out at north to 6-1. And a big reason for that, the reason why I like it, is that Georgia has been a slow starting team under Carson Beck for the past year and a half. 0 points in the first quarter against both Clemson and Kentucky this season. And when you look back at this trend, it extends all the way back into 2023, when they struggled in the first half against South Carolina, Auburn, Mizzou, even Alabama in the SEC title game. And the common thread is Beck and offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. He's having issues getting a feel for the game early. They go a little too conservative for my taste. That's why I like Bama to grab the first half lead. But then Georgia pours it on in the second half, and it's usually when their defense makes adjustments at the halftime break and plays better in the final 30 minutes. Also, with an extra week to prepare, Alabama's Kalen DeBoer, he's a savant. He proved it at Washington in all of the big games last season. I think he's going to have an incredible script for the first 15 to 20 plays of this game. So I see Alabama grabbing that early lead, and at north of 6-1, I'm happy to roll the dice.
Yeah, it's such a unique approach for this one, and it kind of makes sense. It feels like that line has moved a lot in favor of Alabama. They have looked great. Milroe, in particular, has been phenomenal under center, and I think we kind of expected under DeBoer for him to kind of take off this season. So, it's a very interesting approach. Hopefully for my Jalen Milroe ticket, the Bama can hold on in particular. But again, this is a top 5 matchup where anything can go. So a double result is definitely, a smart way to attack this one. I can't let you go, though, without getting an actual best bet in the G5 land. Of course, you're over on BBOC live every Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Of course, you also have a podcast with Mike Iannello breaking down the G5 and all things that. Thursday Night Football. Not the NFL. We got a 7:30 matchup between Army and Temple, and you like a total this one. The Service Academy Army, they're up 12, they're favored by 12.5, but you like a total here.
Yeah, I'm going to go over 46 in this one, and it starts with this little fact dating back to 2018. When a team draws a service academy with a limited prep window, that means they play on a Saturday and they turn around and have to play either on a Thursday or a Friday. It's happened 17 times since 2018. The over is cashed out 14 of those 17 times and cruised past the closing total by an average of 8.5 points per game. A big reason for that is that teams just struggle with the limited prep window to get the run fits down, to figure out all the different wrinkles of the triple option, and to really drill out of their players to that aggressiveness that generally, a lot of their pass rushers and edge rushers go to the football, create havoc. Well, the thing about it is if you are not disciplined and if you are out of a lane or out of, not playing with proper leverage, all of a sudden a 3 or 4 yard play can be a 60-yard rushing touchdown. And we've seen it with Army this season. They are running like a Swiss watch. This offense is absolutely humming, and it's up against a defense in Temple that has really struggled to stop the run. They're bottom 10 across the board in just about every meaningful run defense metric. And Army is second nationally in rushing in the entire country with 356 yards on the ground per game. They're fourth in success rate, third in rushing success, sixth in 3 and outs. And that's been key because when you see a service academy struggle, they generally get off the field quickly. They leave their defense out to dry with extra possessions that they have to deal with. And this Army team also has avoided any havoc. The fewest plays gaining 0 or negative yards in the entire country, and they are number 1 nationally in blown block rate. So when they get their hands on somebody, they're moving them, they're opening holes for this running game. And finally, it takes 2 to tango on a total, as I like to say. We're going over 46 here. The Temple Owls are an offense that absolutely needs to cook with a new quarterback. They got one. Evan Simon, 2 starts this year, 7 TDs, only 1 pick.
It'll be really interesting to see, the Service Academy. If you're struggling defending the run, imagine a triple option or any other options that you're going to get thrown at. Seems like Army is going to be able to move the ball as you expect. And a little pregame precursor to Cowboys, Giants, maybe a higher scoring game in particular here in this one, or at least hopefully there is. But Mike Calabrese, a reminder, you're on Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on BBOC over on our BBOC YouTube channel. But I'll be talking to you again most likely soon. So enjoy, my friend, and best of luck on Thursday.
Appreciate it, Charlie.
And I think Jacksonville plus 6.5 at the Texans is a great play. And it's actually one of my favorite early plays of the week. So Jacksonville, of course, looked absolutely horrendous last night. Jacksonville's new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, plays the most man coverage in the NFL. Josh Allen is elite against man coverage since 2020 for Warren Sharp. Early downs, 42 touchdowns, 4 interceptions against man coverage, 27 touchdowns, 29 interceptions against zone. Okay, well, now you got to play CJ Stroud. How's he do? Hey, guess what? CJ Stroud against zone, which the Jaguars don't play very much. CJ Stroud lights it up. Number 1 QBR last year, 89th percentile PFF against zone. How about against man? The thing Jacksonville does do, 27th in QBR a year ago, 17th percentile against man in PFF. So It's a matchups play here. It's also just a big line for an early season division game. I don't really trust the Texans still. I know we were on the island last year, but I think this is going to come down to the quarterbacks in a game where neither team can really run the football right now. And then, Brendan, we've talked about this all year. 6.5 point road underdogs. Just blind. That is a spot to play teams. Those teams are 7-1 ATS for the season. Play the money line also. We're getting over 30% ROI on the money line. I like Jacksonville here. I think I will be looking at Jacksonville to win outright as well. And I don't think it's going to stay at 6.5 all week long. So I might log this one early in the action app.
And just a reminder that any pick we give out here on the show, like the one you heard earlier from Mike Calabrese, you can easily reference by following us in the award-winning Action Network app. Everything is tracked there under the handle @green.daily. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's going to be all from me on this Wednesday. Enjoy the day off from football. We'll be back here tomorrow to break down Thursday night football between the Cowboys and the New York Giants, getting a little bit of tropical on the island as well. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 Eastern.